Welcome to Asian Book Club, where we highlight Asian and Asian American authors. We are your hosts,
Jamae and Sabangan.
and I'm Stephen Park. And today we're on our second read of The Holiday Switch by Tiff Marcello. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about something that happened in the book. It's a very small scene, and it's one in which Lila wakes up and she's getting her morning routine together, but at the same time, she's getting cups and plates and things like that ready for her family, more specifically her parents. What they say in the book is bring out yours, bring out others too.
Mm-hmm.
Was this something that you were taught as a kid? I feel like for me, and my thought was that almost everyone was taught this concept.
I feel like it wasn't taught to me with this verbiage, but yes, as the ate, I had to do everything for my siblings. So by doing that, I also had to get ready for my parents' stuff too.
But this was in my mind for everyone because I'm the youngest, and it's the fact of if you're going to get something, you should be thinking about the other people around you.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't just be for yourself.
I don't know if that's how my siblings think, but for us, I think it was more of a ate thing. Ate's gonna do it, or someone's gonna do it for us.
That seems interesting because one of the things I wanted to talk about was kind of this underlying etiquette. And for me, I could not distinguish out the Asian respectfulness of the etiquette versus what I was taught as an individual, as a part of my family.
Hmm.
So things like this, where it's like you're getting things ready, or if I'm going to the market, I'm gonna try to see if anyone else needs anything because I'm already making that trip. If I'm going to wash my car and it's in the driveway where my parents are, then I'm gonna see if anyone else wants their car washed while I'm already doing it.
Yeah.
So it's that concept of like me already being there or me already going through the actions that need to happen. So then I want to see if anyone else would need it.
So I think when it comes to errands, we think the same way, especially when my siblings are with me. Again, I don't know if it's me that sparks this thought process or if it's really my siblings. But for example, when we go out to get boba together, my sister would be like, well, let's also get something for mom because mom is home.
Right. So thinking of others as you're doing something.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
There's another part of the etiquette that I was thinking of because I had this incident where I was in H Mart and the one that's close to us is this very small one. The same people work there. The owner or manager is almost always there, so I run into her all the time. And usually, especially in Portland where bags are 10 cents extra and I'm just on my way home, so I'm not really preparing for a shopping trip. I'll buy some things, and usually those things are not easily carried, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm always kind of stumbling with the goods out of the store.
Mm-hmm.
This time, the person who's the manager kind of came out chasing after me and she was like, "Hey, like if you need a bag, just let us know." And then she gave me one of the store bags, which isn't like the paper bag or the plastic bag.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those reusable bags,
Yeah.
which is very sweet. It's very nice. But in my mind, what that then creates is a constant use of this bag. Like, I need to show her that I'm using it and that it's not just going to waste.
Totally.
So, this to me is like another etiquette thing where now, if I ever enter that store, I need to have that bag with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have it now stored on my vehicle. I am very cognizant of having this bag, even if I go in for one item, so
Mm.
that she can see that I'm using it and I'm thankful and grateful for this.
Definitely. There's that reciprocity.
Right. Even just accepting the bag, I couldn't just reach out and grab it. For me, it was always taught to me as tu sonoro pada, which is like use both hands to receive the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when she gave it to me, because I was thankful, I reached out with both hands. I did a little bow and I said thank you. Like it's very much a part of who I am and I can't separate it, especially if it's coming from someone who is a Korean elder. Like it's an automatic trigger that happens of I need to be polite and I need to make sure that the actions that I'm doing are appropriate for representing respect.
For sure. Is it the same as what Youngmi said in her book?
What's that?
I don't remember the term, but it's when everybody knows the same kind of politeness or etiquette.
Yeah, you mean when she was talking about like her dad and his actions around the Korean
Yes,
community.
exactly that part.
Yeah, it's probably the same thing.
Hmm.
But once again, for me, it's just a part of who I am. And it's something that I thought everyone knew. And my expectation when I go out is that everyone is doing this.
Hmm.
But a lot of times, especially in Portland, I've been proven very wrong.
For sure.
Well, I think this is going to lead into next week as we start getting ready for the holiday seasons, and it's coming down to that last little bit where people are likely going to start exchanging gifts and doing that stuff. So make sure you're on your best etiquette. Make sure you're not being disrespectful to people that are giving you presents and things. But if you need music to follow along with those events, that's going to be our recommendation for the week.
Our recommendation for the week is Haley Hendricks. Haley Hendricks is a singer-songwriter who draws from her religious Filipino-American upbringing, folk music of the 1960s and 70s, jazz radio, and the idiosyncratic acoustic guitar stylings of Leo Kotka and John Fahey. With cool vocals and well-produced dynamic instrumental accompaniment, Haley Hendricks creates music that's easy to listen to. You can learn more about Haley Hendricks through her website at haley-hendricks.com. That's HALEY-HEYNDERICKS.com. And find her on Instagram at HHHendricks. That's HHHENDRIX.
Yep, and that's going to be our recommendation for the week. Okay, so we're reading The Holiday Switch by Tiff Marcello. We are in our second read, which was pages 93 through 176, which were chapters 10 through chapter 17. Up until this point, what did our first read tell us?
During our first read, we were introduced to Lila Santos and the people in her life, and one of those people is her new coworker, Teddy Rivera. By the end of the first read, they accidentally switch phones and find out each other's secret.
Yep, so we get into our second read with a little bit more depth of entering that relationship between Lila and Teddy. There is a forced exchange of interaction because Lila is now leading Teddy and making sure that he's getting acclimated with the bookstore because that's what Miss Velasco is wanting of Lila to do.
Mm-hmm.
Lila needs the money, so she's not going to turn it down. And Teddy is, I don't know. Like, he's not being a bad employee. He's just not being the employee that Lila wants him to be.
Right, and Lila is very particular the same way Miss Velasco is, while Teddy kind of is more innovative.
Yeah, and to be honest, Lila is very particular. Miss Velasco is particular, but Miss Velasco isn't being bothered by what Teddy's doing with the store.
Mm-hmm.
Only Lila is.
For sure. Have you ever been a trainer with a trainee like Teddy?
Maybe. I would say that more often than not, I do have a very type A way of doing things,
Mm-hmm.
but I do try to open up my mind for concepts and explanations of what people are doing. So if they have a better methodology of doing it, I would be open to hearing it.
Gotcha.
The reason why I say maybe is when people have not done things extremely well, in my opinion, they've never had a good explanation for why they did it that way. And I
Hmm.
try to leave that opportunity to say, like, okay, what was your reasoning behind this? And is this an appropriate change or even maybe a personal change that you can do that's different from my practice? So
For sure.
I'm not opposed to people doing different things. I just want to make sure there's good reasoning.
Hmm.
So to answer the question, I don't know because no one has done things differently than I have and appropriately proven that their method was a justifiable one.
Okay. Okay, that's fair.
In that sense, what Teddy does to the bookstore isn't that bad,
Mhm.
and the results of it are actually good.
Right. He moves the bobbleheads and makes sure that there's a way to move around the store without knocking into things.
That, on top of trying to expedite the checking out process,
Mm-hmm.
he's also rearranged the bookshelves of Lila's book corner.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the last straws, I would say, that Lila has in terms of being able to hold her composure.
Mm-hmm. Because the way he arranges it is by color so that it has a rainbow effect. But by doing this, he's mixing up the different book categories. The children's books are with the travel books are with the fiction and the nonfiction, so on and so forth.
But by doing this, he's also attracting more visitors. He's getting many more people to that corner, which is kind of the purpose of having that corner.
Right.
It seemingly keeps drawing a bigger and bigger divide between Lila and Teddy until we kind of get towards the later portions of our read where they start forming a bond and a truce between the nature and habits of each other.
Right, and it's because they now hold each other's secrets.
Yep. Teddy first finds out that the author of Tinsel and Tropes is Lila, which there's a whole reasoning why Lila doesn't want that to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And Lila knows that Teddy's doing something with climbing, which still is a mystery to me, and I would say for most readers, because it doesn't seem like the author wants to reveal that part yet.
I think there's a little bit of reason behind why Teddy doesn't want the climbing to be shared. And part of it is because Miss Velasco and Teddy's mom, who are sisters, are not getting along.
But for me, that doesn't explain why Teddy shouldn't be climbing.
Hmm.
Like, that explains why he's present at that town of Holly,
Mm-hmm.
but why can't he climb? It seems like a harmless activity.
Fair.
And that's the thing that he's trying to hide from Miss Velasco, and he's hiding the entrance of a competition from seems like both her and his mom.
Right.
Now we see this mixture of Lila knowing about Teddy's climb, which gives her a little bit of advantage and an opening into conversation with him.
Mm-hmm.
On the other end, we see the portion of Tinsel and Tropes start to develop a little bit more. We
Mm.
start to see more of the work of Lila and what she's writing in these blogs. And then something comes out where an anonymous blogger named Santa with a View is starting to send her a bunch of messages.
Right. And consistently sending messages through the blog comment section.
Right. One of which is an application so that she can try to pursue her writing further.
Mm-hmm. As a reviewer in one of the more known blogs.
Yeah. What do you think about Santa with the View? I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I'm thinking Santa with a View is just Teddy.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I wasn't sure how obvious it was, but it very much seems like it's Teddy. Even in the writing, what we see is that as soon as Santa with a blog leaves a message or Lila sees it, immediately it's followed by an action from Teddy.
Right.
So I would assume the insinuation is that Teddy is this anonymous blogger.
That's what I'm thinking, unless that's too obvious.
Maybe, but this book is very much giving Hallmark vibes.
Mm.
And Hallmark vibes are very obvious. It's
Mm.
usually not hidden and sunken. It's just, oh, this is the lover that you're waiting for, and they're going to try to do everything to help you out and do everything right.
I can see that.
Speaking of love, that leads us to these moments where we're starting to see Lila and Teddy form a relationship outside of work.
Yes, and to be honest, I was kind of against it. Earlier in the read, when Lila was super angry at Teddy, I definitely felt the enemy's vibe, and I was like, maybe she won't fall in love with Teddy. Maybe Teddy's looks won't be enough. Or maybe Teddy's personality won't be enough. But these killing moments started to pop up, and I was like, oh, enemies to lovers for real.
Yeah, but he's also doing very sweet things. He's doing the Santa with a View thing with the presumption, and granted, it may not be the right assumption, but he can see this part of her that really wants to write,
Mm-hmm.
and he wants to try to give her a life in which she can find and pursue that happiness because clearly a lot of her goals are centered around her being a perfect daughter or her being someone for someone else,
Mm-hmm.
whereas this would be something for herself. He also finds ways to get her involved in that holiday list of things to do.
Mission Holly.
Mission Holly, even though it may not be with her best friends, he's finding sneaky ways to make sure that she gets that done.
Mm.
I don't know if I fully approve of what he's doing in terms of that, because she also had to cancel plans with her friend to go do things with Teddy, and
Mm-hmm.
that led up to it. But I think the thoughtfulness of Teddy, even though he comes in with leather jacket vibes and bad boy attitude
Mm-hmm.
things, he's actually very much thinking of her and trying to care for her.
Fair. Well, let's talk about another one of these killing moments. When Lila's twin brothers needed to go to a birthday party, it turned out to be at the rock climbing gym. And there, Lila found out that Teddy was working.
Yeah, and from there, we see not only this interaction of Lila being in the same space as Teddy, but she becomes volunteered as an example. This gives an opportunity to have Teddy closer to her, and he doesn't invade her space much, and he gives her a lot of comfort as she's going through these fears. And once again, I think Teddy's being protective of Lila.
True. I mean, he doesn't invade her space at all. He's trying to get her into a harness, which definitely needs to be within each other's spaces.
And even the way he does it isn't intruding. It's, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Just making sure you know that this is the process. And if you feel uncomfortable with any of this, just let me know. And then we stop.
For sure.
She's scared to go up the wall. Teddy's telling her that it's her decision and it doesn't need to happen. So it's a lot of Teddy being a responsible individual who's caring for someone.
Definitely responsible, respectful, and kind.
Yeah, because the other part could have happened where he takes advantage and is like, "Oh, I'm gonna put this harness on." It doesn't even have to be dirty, but just the fact that he's just clipping things in and like moving things around her body without giving any explanation,
Mm-hmm.
that also feels a little creepy.
Right.
But as Teddy is doing this stuff, the other person, Lila, is breathing in his fragrance. She's getting wooed by his strong muscles and all that. So
Yes,
it's definitely the start of an interaction that I think is going to blossom.
for sure. And even us just talking about it, I'm already blushing.
Hmm. This interaction kind of ends at the start of the Christmas party that Teddy's invited to. This Christmas party is going to be at Lila's residence, well, her family's residence.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't gotten to past that part yet, which will be our third and final read. But before we even go into that, what are your thoughts for what you might be expecting for this next read?
If we're going with the Hallmark vibes, I think that Teddy and Lila are finally going to get together at the end of the read. I don't think we're gonna see any breakups or makeups. I think that things are just gonna slowly build.
I agree. The only addition I would make is I think they get together when they go to Syracuse together. I
Mm,
think Lila might go to Syracuse for the doctor program, but she maybe minors in writing or maybe just decides to fully major in writing and go through with this process of that reviewership that she had applied for.
totally. I can see that.
So, because my predictions are pretty great, I'm sure that's going to be in our third read, and that read is going to be.
Pages 177 through 261 on the physical copy, and for everyone, that's chapters 18 through 27 plus the epilogue.
Yep. And if you have any thoughts on this book and you wanted to share it with us, how can people reach out to us?
Y'all can email us at asianbookclubpod@gmail.com or join the conversation on Instagram at asianbookclubpod.
We also have our website, which is asianbookclubpod.com, which has our bookshop with books that we've read in the past, books that we recommend, and books that we plan to read in the future.
And a great way to support us is to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast.
Otherwise, make sure to be happy, be healthy, and read a book.
Ingat! Bye!